Morning, everybody. Welcome back to VESPIIA's Future Frontlines podcast. Today, I have the incredible Peter Liston from the veteran business community with us to talk a little bit about VBC and veteran-owned businesses. So thank you so much for joining me, Pete. Wonderful to have you.
Pleasure.
Yeah, very exciting to have you on the podcast. Recently, VESPIIA and VBC have become mutual members of each other's organisation, and you're looking at how we're supporting veterans and first responders as they run their own businesses. So want to get struck straight into the story about how VBC came to be, what that means for you, all of the good stuff about your journey to create this thing.
Perfect. So I didn't join the army until pretty late. I was a farmer, labourer, just sort of regular Joe. Walked into Townsville recruiting office one day and just signed up. So I actually had my 31st birthday. It was my first birthday in the army when everybody else there was like 18, 19, 20, 21. So I was always really the older guy. Look, I love the army. It was the best job I ever had, but ultimately I was always passionate about business and enterprise, entrepreneurship. So after doing about 12 years, decided to get out. And with one of my Duntron classmates, we started a little business called Secure Windows. We heard on the radio that a new law had passed in New South Wales to say that every window in the state needed a window lock, stop kids falling out. And we're like, man, there must be a lot of windows in New South Wales. So we started a little business that ended up putting tens of thousands, if not 100,000 window locks on across the state. And it was really empowered by a bloke called Ryan Hall, who was an ex-infantry corporal. He jumped on as our basically operations guy. Matt Mosley was my business partner that I set it up with, and we just cracked on. We ended up hiring heaps of diggers just because we liked them. They were easy to train and they did what they were told, particularly when Wally, who was a big buff infantry corporal, told them what to do. And as a result of that, we won the inaugural Prime Minister's Veteran Employment Award for Veteran Employer of the Year. So that was pretty cool. I think the biggest clincher of winning the award was we used to let Hawley bring his dog to work. And so just make cute photos with Jack Russell, Bruce. But when we won the award, we got invited to a lot of DBA think tanks on employment. And we were just like, we're not here for employment. We want to start businesses. And there was very little out there to support veterans in the ecosystem. There was a course running by Princess Trust that we did and by a lovely lady by the name of Janine Kirk. But ultimately, there was very, very, very little out there. So we just decided to build something that would support veterans, partners, spouses to be successful in business.
I think that's such a common story that we hear through veterans, whether it's the nonprofit space, ex-service organisations, or coming in, that it's like the community is always at the heart of it, that how we're supporting people and being part of the community well beyond service. So through VBC, tell us a little bit about its core function and what it does today.
I think we got lucky because veteran business community is exactly what it does. So the core of it is community. And the reason we do it is because we're passionate about the people in this space. We just, for all of their warts and flaws and a few swear words here and there, we just love working with veterans. It's a connection to what was a really important part of our life. And for me, I'm really passionate about honoring that service and really helping people. I don't mean to sound too funny, but me going to business, I've got a really good life out of it. I get to be home and coach soccer teams and I get to travel, and we've made it quite successful. And I would just love other people in the community to have that same level of success as well. So ultimately, it's not about me and what I do. It's about connection to a group of people where everybody can learn and share. I think business is a lot like wealth and fitness. It's very easy to look at what you don't have, but there's always somebody that's either ahead of you or behind you on the ladder. And I reckon within this community, we've all got something to learn or share from each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially when you're trying to start something new and from the ground up, it can be really easy to sort of silo yourself in a way and get a little bit isolated, and realizing that there's this whole community of people around you that have been through it before, and you're further in the journey, but that's knowledge to share. That's not your competition or a comparison. It's how do we kind of you pull that knowledge so that everybody has it a little bit easier the next time. That community aspect is, because you're going out on your own and doing something for yourself for the first time is frankly terrifying in my experience.
You mentioned that going out on your own. Well, that's what we did. Well, at least I had Matt to sort of help me out with it. And then Hawley when he came on. But where are you going to learn these lessons? Because in the military, you're really good at a lot of stuff, and a lot of those skills are really directly applicable to business, particularly operations and people management and, you know, leadership and all the intangibles. But there's a couple of really core functions that you don't learn until you get into business. And in particular, I think they're like branding, sales, and marketing and cash flow and accounting now. It's sometimes a bit hard as an ex-soldier or sailor or airman to sell or be a salesperson or talk yourself up. So we know we've got a professional development and educational program that people can come and learn how to be business people. Take those skills from the military and fill the gaps and hopefully have a successful business.
Yeah, I think that sort of something you showed about you talking yourself up. It's not an innate skill set from the military. As many people know, I'm a spouse myself, and a big part of my career was sales. Retail sales, hospitality. That's been second nature to me, and like networking and things like that. You haven't even thought about it. And then working with veterans, that sort of understated. Oh well, as part of the team or kind of downplaying what they did. Yeah, coming into owning a business, you have to be kind of put that at the forefront to sell whatever
Yeah.
it is your product is, but to sell yourself as well, that you are that brand. And that can be a really confronting experience, I think, for people who have never had to do that before, that sales or that marketing piece. Obviously, marketing itself is probably more complex, I think, than we give it credit for, at least in my experience and opinion, that it's like, oh, well, you just put something on social media and that's it. It's like, it's actually a pretty expansive skill set that you have to be a successful marketer. But when that's not something you've ever been exposed to, that's such a unique skill set that you now have to. You can be as extroverted as you want, but how do you actually do that effectively? How do you network effectively and build business relationships? That's a whole new thing. It can be really confronting and I think scary for veterans or for service personnel to kind of wade into that.
And it's not just a marketing thing as well. Like there's that saying, when you start a business, you're wearing all the hats. You're wearing the operations hat, doing the job. You're wearing the sales hat. You're wearing the marketing hat. You're wearing the branding hat. You're doing the accounts yourself. You're wearing all of these, different roles that, especially if you're by yourself or in a small business, the buck stops with you. So we just want to really give people access to training the skills, but most importantly, the community and the guidance so you're not by yourself. Because this is the foundation level financial freedom and success of veteran families as well. And if the business is struggling or if you've got a great idea, but you don't know how to execute it and you're bumbling all over the place, you just got to make sure the extra family pressures that's going to bring, or try and minimize as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for veteran spouses, you're with that part again, you're that sort of posting cycle to be able to run a business while your spouse is still active service, like that transferability of it, that you're in a new space, but your business still runs. It can run wherever, but now you have a whole new space that you've got to create new community and new networks and you have, I think, having something built in that no matter where you go, that there's always going to be someone to talk to and someone to connect with you. Because yeah, when you are running a business, it can be kind of lonely, that you feel like you're in your little thing, you're in your own office or working from home or whatever. I talk to my cat a bit too much and gotten a bit weird here and there, but it's fun. She doesn't talk back, so I think that's the main thing.
But like with the partners and spouses piece as well, I've got a couple of thoughts here. So number one, there are not, yes, partners and spouses, we have probably 85, 95% women, probably an underutilized and untapped part of productivity for the nation. And I like to think that most army people, punch above their weight and meet great partners because they're great people, so they meet great people. And particularly for partners and spouses, whether they be male or female, whatever, when they get pulled around the posting cycle and they lose continuity of their career and their friendships, ultimately, is that going to lead to a happy wife, happy life, or unhappy wife, unhappy life scenario where the serving member makes a choice between finally their family over it? So I think there's a couple of things. Number one is a productivity level, and how do we help, intelligent partners and spouses make the most of their own careers through self-employment, but also I wish the ADF would look at this more from a capability perspective, that if we put more focus on partners and spouses, you might keep more people serving. And then the third one is, for the people who get to that point where maybe they reach that conundrum between family and service and they separate, does this mean that less kids, with mums and dads because of split families? So I'm not saying that, you know, we're going to prevent families breaking up. Things happen. But ultimately, the military is a hard life, and it's particularly hard for partners. So VBC, we recognise partners and spouses as equals within our community, and we want to promote them as veteran community businesses as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I think you're right. There's been discussions that I've had in my own marriage of like, well, that my time will come. That early on that it was, well, we do this now, and then he probably won't be in forever. And then when that decision comes, he gets out, then I can focus on my career. Um, I've been very lucky that that hasn't been the case, that I've been able to do that alongside it as well. And I'm quite fortunate that I've been able to start VESPIIA, and prior to that, I kind of had to give myself the space to have a career that was just as important, that it wasn't when he finishes and his career is done, I now get to do mine. When who knows how far down the line that could be. What can I kind of do concurrently that is just as important, is adding just as much value to my own life, that I'm feeling fulfilled, and I'm not just working at a bar because I need a job and that's what I do. Yeah, that value add that I think we've discussed this on your podcast previously, that sort of, I guess, that value set that aligns, that we're willing to do the same things and make the same sacrifices, in a sense that why wouldn't we contribute in the same way? And I've met some incredible women, some that are neuroscientists and like actual neurosurgeons, which is incredible and intimidating, and wonderful, and healthcare professionals and artists, and one of my friends runs an exceptionally successful dance studio, and the thought that she may have waited 10, 15 years to do that because her husband is currently serving, and it's like, oh, well, I will get my turn. It's like, well, no, your turn is now. That shouldn't be a prohibiting factor to starting a business or to starting a project. And we see it a lot in defense industry as well, that there's a lot of spouses working in industry, and capability development. Like, why wouldn't you be developing technologies and you're working in cyber and doing all these really cool things just because your husband or your spouse happens to serve? And so I think there is a much broader conversation to be had for partners, that their time is absolutely now, and knowing that there's a built-in community that would support you while you built something for yourself or for your family, that can come with you and travel and all that sort of stuff, I think is essential.
One of the things that I'm really passionate about the veteran community in particular is, and veteran community, including the serving members, veterans, and partners and spouses of either, is it is a community built on service. Now, there's a lot of, diversity and equity and inclusion, or different segments of the population. But the veteran community is the only one that isn't based on race, religion, gender, sexuality, what your skin color is, what you believe, who you love. Our community is just based on people who serve other people and who have actually committed to that. And on that note, I know one of the great things about VESPIIA is what you do with the first responders as well. So I think we're very lucky in the military to have a lot more formal, well, I think more formal frameworks, as well as Department of Veteran Affairs and some other things. But a big shout out to you in terms of what you're doing with those other people who serve as well.
It's a massive part of what we're uncovering in the space, is this sort of privilege in a way that we've had in defence and veterans, that what we have now is so advanced, and what we have with DBA and these national federal frameworks of support, that we're seeing almost the opposite with first responders, that things that we were talking about around employment transition 10 years ago with veterans, like we're just starting to have those conversations in first response, which is kind of double-edged in that it's devastating to hear that we're so far behind in these conversations. But on the flip of that, the positive, I guess, we can make out of it is that we have all of these learnings from defence, and we have all of these frameworks, and we have these things set up that are transferable, that we can just, cool, you guys can access this now too, and we can broaden things, and we know what to do, and we know what works. And so, I think where you're talking about veteran-owned businesses as well, like where can and how can we and how quickly can we highlight first responder owned businesses as well? What are their side gigs? Like, what are their business ideas that can be raised as well? And how we is supporting them through that journey, I think is really important, because again, a whole new space, whole new world for some of them. So how we ensuring that they're going to be successful in that venture and that idea.
From my perspective is, I was fortunate enough to do a couple of deployments. I got to go away to Timor and Afghanistan, but there's a saying in the military that individual experiences vary. And for me, as a logistics officer, like I slept in a bed in Afghanistan every night and woke up and had cappuccino and cake every day. So my experience was very, very different to the warfighters and people who spent their life on the outside of the war. And sometimes I feel that, some of the first responders out there, coppers and fireys and ambos, the level of trauma that they get exposed to in their hashtag civilian career is probably a lot more than I went through in my military career.
Oh yeah, I think yeah, the day-to-day exposure, you is certainly a massive point of difference between the two services. I think something that I've experienced working in the veteran support space and now working with first responders is that we have a tendency, I guess, to want to play comparison to, well, this was my experience and compared to that, it wasn't that bad. And for every veteran that goes, well, first responders, they see it every day, the same amount of cops turning around and going, well, defense guys, like they have it harder because at least I don't get posted every 2 years, and I know my shifts, like I'm not getting called away anywhere. Like there's such a tendency to play comparison of, wow, well, mine's not that bad, theirs is definitely worse. And we were having a chat with a copper out of Tasmania working on the child sexual assault squad. And he was like, oh, like, compared to defense guys, I'm fine. I'm like, what do you mean? The things that you're exposed to, like, yeah, like I know guys that have barely left base, like they're completely fine. Like, this isn't potato. Like, this is, just how is that a comparison? But the reality is that, everybody has their own experience, and what we know of service, that just the fact of being in service can often be the trauma, let alone what you're exposed to throughout. So, I think acknowledging that everybody kind of has that point of difference in how they served or what they saw in their service, and maybe the things that have affected them. At the end of the day, I think it's that commitment to community or to country that is the common factor here, and it's the value of service and the things you would be willing to do. That you have put yourself out there and potentially on the line for the protection of of other Australians, is the thing that draws everyone together, and that's the common thread. And that's where we focus.
Yeah, it's probably a very Australian thing also to be a little bit self-deprecating and not wanting to, up the spotlight and to always try and push it onto somebody else. So it's just part of the way we roll.
Yeah, very understated people, Australians. Don't like a tall poppy, that's for sure. So I guess for your experience in VBC, I'm really interested to know a little bit more, I guess, for anyone who is listening that is potentially thinking about starting a business or has recently started a business. What have you seen as, I guess, the common challenges that our community is coming up against in those sort of first couple of years of starting something?
Yeah, look, I've come up with like this is nothing revolutionary, but I think there's 4 simple steps to business growth. The first one is ideation. And you've got to really unpack, is business right for me in the first place? So, and for some people, I think business is right for them and they should lean in, but for whatever reason, they might be hesitant or just, feeling a bit of fear in terms of making that jump. Getting to the point where is business right for me and is my business viable is really important. So you can have a great idea and, your mum and your girlfriend and everyone else says, oh, that's tops. But does the market think it's tops? And, will it actually sell? And will people reach into their back pocket and hand over their hard-earned coin to you for something that you've got? So I think that's step one, is that ideation. Is business right for me? And is my idea viable? Once we get through that stage, we have a crack. And then there's the first sort of foundation stage, and that's making your first up to $100,000 in revenue. If you make $100,000 in revenue, then you're going to have expenses out of that. You might be taking home 50 or 60. So now you're getting to the point where you're almost self-employed, almost bringing home, a decent enough income to provide for yourself instead of getting a job. That's the foundation stage. But we want to, it's everybody's different and different places, different expenses, different time in life. But to really consolidate, you might have to get maybe 200,000 or $300,000 in revenue. And that way you are providing more than $100,000 net return for your family. And now you're at the point where the business is starting to provide from that respect. So we sort of have these thresholds of getting across the 100,000 revenue mark. How do we build your business from 100,000 to $1 million in revenue and then go beyond? You do get to a point in business where generally between maybe the $500,000 to $700,000 a year mark, you're going to be constrained by the amount of hours you have in a day. Like you're just literally not going to be able to do more jobs or you'll be bound by the glass ceiling of your own systems and digitization and automation. So this is where we really want to help people empower them to, we call it systemize, automate, and delegate. Now, how do we create good processes that start replacing you as a business owner? How do we use technology and digitization to really empower and provide leverage? And then ultimately, how do we delegate effectively and bring team members in? Because it's at this level that you're shifting from self-employment into an enterprise which has value in itself. So, and again, one of the big things I believe is that it's not for me to say we should have a 50 grand business or a 5 million. That's totally up to you and your position and what you want out of life. And for some people, earning 20 grand as a side gig is brilliant, and that is a sign of ultimate success. Self-employment, the one I think about then is making sure that it's viable because it's hard work to provide for yourself. And sometimes it's easier to get a job. But from that point of self-employment into a business is when you actually have an asset. And if one day you want to get out of that business, you can hopefully sell it because sometimes that self-employment, when you get out, it stops and there's nothing, you're not selling anything because it's you doing it all the time. So this is where we want to work with people and say, look, first of all, what are your goals and ambitions? What's right for you in what you want out of business? And then understand how to help them through these different thresholds so that ultimately everyone's achieving what's, again, right for them.
Yeah, and I think that your initial thought of like, well, overcoming the fear, I guess, to step into it, like that's such an initial challenge to get through, but you understanding what viability means to you and what your minimum product is going to be, like that. If you don't have that from the beginning, like you really can't form out your long-term goals and what long-term sustainability is going to look like unless what are you happy with achieving. And if you want to build something that's going to be $50 million in revenue, well, that's going to take a lot of work. If you're prepared to do it, fantastic. But you have to know that from the beginning, and that it's actually achievable. You might think it's a $50 million idea, but maybe it's only a $5 million idea. But it's still worth doing.
And what's really important to think of is, and I'll just come back to it, is what's right for you and your family, and what are you driven for? So for me, I've got some very successful and quite large businesses, but that's just because where I am in my life and some of the things that I'm trying to achieve. Particularly for people who are transitioning, a side gig that pays for a couple of extra holidays every year or gets to scratch that itches is equally successful. One of the things that we have to be very careful of is growing. Why are you growing? So you might get to $500,000 in revenue. You're like, oh, I want $1 billion business. But is that actually more profitable than having a $400,000 business in revenue? As you grow, things are more expensive. You have to build more admin teams. And I've had some of my businesses where I've grown really, really fast, but it's only when I've downsized them that they've become far more profitable. So always coming back to the why you're doing it and understanding the commercials and the money is really important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that was something I kind of was exposed to early on in my career. I was a manager of a small business basically, and that I guess like controlling the controllable or something I was taught was like your controllable expenses versus those uncontrollable, which was your staffing costs and things like that. And so how are you managing some of these expenses that are within your control that, well, you can't change how much your lease is going to be, that maybe we can adjust these other things and you ensure that profit's still coming in, that it is still a viable product. That's such an essential thing to learn very quickly so that that scalability is actually going to be successful.
That's right. One of the things I would always sort of recommend to anyone starting a business is it's one thing to have a good idea, but just really come back and reflect on what problem are you solving for someone. So my little boy is about to have his first school stall. At the spring.
Idea.
At 9 years old, I'm super pumped that I get to talk
Love
shop
it.
again. But he's like, I want a lolly stall. I want to do a lolly stall. Great
Brilliant
idea.
idea.
Yeah, great idea. But are there any other lolly stalls? He's like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, why is it that kids care about lolly stalls? Now, so just getting to unpack, and I know having a lolly stall sounds like a great idea, but if you can actually articulate what problem that solves, and then think about different ways of how you're going to promote that, because one of the things that a lot of business owners do, they think about features. They think about, well, our business does, is the leader in this and we do X, Y, and Z. Instead of focusing on what effect your business has from an emotional perspective on the person buying it. Because if you can explore and unpack how your customer feels when they buy your thing, now you're starting to gain real insights on why your business matters and is it going to be successful or not.
That was something that I've kind of applied. I think I learned in like a grant writing session or something along the way that was, but why? And if I couldn't answer but why 4 to 5 times, then I needed to go back and reevaluate what I was doing. It's like, well, I want to do this. Like, I want to have a lolly store. Well, okay, but why? Well, because of this reason. Okay, but why? And like really narrowing down into the why of like, why are you even doing this thing in the first place? Like, yeah, why is this a problem to solve? Like, why this particular format or why this community? If you couldn't answer that a couple of times without going, well, because I think it's a good idea, I don't know, because like you, that meant that you hadn't thought it through enough. Not saying that it's a bad idea. Like, having a lolly store is a great idea. Lollies are great. Who wouldn't want that? But why this? Why this format? Why this particular product? Why this particular consumer base? Like, why are you focusing on this? It's such an interesting thing to nut down, and can be really confronting. I've found that it's like, oh, I've got this great idea. I'm going to do this, and then you ask yourself why a few times. You're like, oh no, I just think it'll be really cool, and
But
maybe
it's
that's
okay.
enough. But like, it's a good thought process to kind of go through.
And it's an important exploration path. And I do a similar thing. I just say, so what? What's next? So you want a lolly store? Okay, so what? What are you going to do next about it? It's like, oh. So, and it's one of my sort of mantras in business when is I just want to keep saying, whenever someone has a thought, I'm like, okay, so what? What's next? Now, articulate, what the meaning of that thought is and talk about what the next steps to actuating it is. So now ideation is really important. There's a couple of programs out there that are doing it at the moment. So I did one from Princess Trust. There's actually King's Trust now does a
Yeah,
program.
I keep getting caught on that. Actually, I keep calling it Princess Trust.
And there's another one called Frontline Labs. So there's two programs in particular that are very much defense and defense partner spouse oriented that nearly everybody can.
Yeah, wonderful. I did the King's Trust accelerator program in the early stages of building VESPIIA, and it was fantastic. I think again, coming back to that community aspect, just knowing that there was, a dozen or so other people who were in this you sort of foundational stage that, I wasn't completely alone here, and I wasn't, out of my depth. I absolutely was out of my depth, but you know, but that I could kind of commiserate with with another group was fantastic. It was a brilliant program. So yeah, absolutely echo looking into those courses. And I know the Commonwealth Bank have a veteran enterprise program that they're raising as well, which is fantastic. So there's a huge amount of learning available in the space. I do just want to backtrack kind of quickly where you were sort of saying like you've got your idea. Brilliant. But that market assessment, I guess, I want to go into a little bit about that just so, again, for anyone who's listening who maybe hasn't heard these terms before and wouldn't actually know how to start doing that kind of work and understanding what viability means. In your experience, like, what's your recommended way to kind of start that assessment of you seeing what's out there and drawing those comparisons? And what are some of the, I guess, the mistakes that we might make along the way that kind of maybe give us false information or that bits that we really need to understand that you see people kind of glancing over and maybe missing some really crucial data.
This is really important. There's a really good book called The Lean Startup that articulates this really well. It's more based on tech businesses and like innovative businesses, but the principles are still the same. But you've got what's called the minimum viable product. I think one of the most important things about starting a business, number one, park your ego because you're going to get things wrong. You're going to make mistakes. Someone told me something. If you're not embarrassed by your first product, you've waited too long. Okay, so the first thing that you bring to market should be flawed. It should be incomplete. It should be just give it a crack and get feedback. Don't wait until it's perfect. Don't keep tinkering it and tailoring it and polishing the edges. Because what if it's not a good idea in the first place? Then you've wasted time and energy and money developing what is an imperfect product. So just test things. Be prepared to be rejected. And this is one of the toughest things about going into business, whether it be sales or People are going to critique your idea. And the ultimate critique is, do they give you money or not? Do they reach into their wallet and pay you? So that is the ultimate in business, and we're doing this to be profitable, and we're doing it to support ourselves and our families. So my biggest thing would be that in terms of minimum viable product, the word minimum is important because it means the smallest or first step. Viable, you can't give away an MVP, right? Someone needs to pay for it. I think that's an important thing. A lot of people say, hey, look, can I give you this sample and give me some feedback? Well, that's fine, but you ultimately need someone to pay for it to really to get that going. I find it is a real challenge, particularly for myself and probably others out there. I use this term worthiness a lot. Your state of worthiness when you first start a business is it can be really tough to value yourself and price yourself correctly. So, for example, my very first systems workshop that I did in one of our businesses called Trust the Process, I spent 8 hours working with somebody, mapping their business with post-it notes all over the place, and I charged them $700. They were like, "Oh, it's great, $700," but I probably made 40 or $50 an hour by the time I did the report and all that kind of stuff. The model evolves and everything evolves, and over time, but I wouldn't do a mapping workshop today well, number one, I wouldn't do it because I just do other things. But if someone wanted me to do it, I probably would want to charge $5,000 or $10,000 a day. So we have this constant battle about proving to ourselves and becoming worthy in our product. And that's why we start with a minimum viable product, because we test it, and we iterate, and we change and evolve.
Yeah, I think it's for you, the development of VESPIIA was such an important thing, I think, as well, to kind of get over the fear in a way that, oh my God, like, are people going to like it? Are they going to want it? But you're right, you can shine it as much as you want and tweak it and add and take away, and you try and make sure that it's absolutely perfect. But it's not going to be. You just kind of have to do it. You're never going to know. And you don't know what to change, you don't know what to improve. And I think some of the best advice I kind of inadvertently, I think, got was from David Ballantyne from Homefront Australia, who's been on the podcast as well, talking to about the first awards for excellence that we did. And I was talking to him, I'm freaking out. I had to change the event sort of last minute because things hadn't gone the way that I thought that they would. And I was changing it up and I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. Like, I'm stressed about how this is coming together. It's not what I had envisioned. And he goes, this is the worst it will ever be. This is the worst iteration of this thing that you will ever do. Your MVP should be the worst version of anything you would do because it's the first time you've done it. You can't come out the gates with the perfect thing. Yeah, that's non-existent. You have to try it. And it turned out to be quite a successful event for us. We had about 100 people there. We gave out 13 awards. We live streamed. It was wonderful. Was it challenging to get there? Of course. Was it what I had in my head initially? No. Did I have a caterer yell at me? Of course. These are the things you go through, especially with an event. But at the end of the day, if that's the worst I could have achieved, I did pretty well. Like, that was
Yeah.
great. And for every year since, is this year still challenging? Of course. It's not just because I've done it before, it's not miraculously the easiest thing in the world to do now, and go swimmingly. But I know that anything that we do this year is going to be better because I'm better informed, because
Yeah.
we had that feedback. And
I think that's brilliant. Dave's a very clever guy and runs a great business up there. And again, he's got a very simple problem. A very simple problem that he solves. He's got veterans that are, looking for home services, and he just solves that problem. It's again
mm,
coming back. It's a great business, and I also enjoy working with his business partner, Chris. So the two of them are both great guys. When coming back to business and learning lessons, if I was to go skiing for the first time ever, if you go up to the top of the mountain and think you're going to ski without lessons or without someone helping you, it's just not going to happen.
yeah,
If you go out for the first time and play golf and you just buy some clubs and walk out onto the first tee, it is literally not going to work. Yet business, we come into business with this mentality sometimes of thinking, I know boats, I'll just give it a go. And we're surprised when things aren't perfect or they don't go well. Things will never, ever be perfect. And the learning process for me, I guess one of the things I'm so passionate about business is I can't study, I can't concentrate. I've started 3 degrees and
yep.
never finished any of them, but I learn so much every day, and we evolve and we improve, and business offers me that because I've got so much to learn.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common sentiment, I think, for a lot of us in the service communities. I have ADHD myself and barely graduated high school, tried university, falling asleep during my lectures. Thankfully, I
Yeah,
studied online from home, so it wasn't too bad. But that I guess that tactile learning and learning through things like podcasts, and you're having that community to talk to and kind of experience along the way has for me been such an important thing that I think even if you think you know what you're doing, you're coming into Vespia, I knew quite a lot, right? I knew how nonprofits run. I've run businesses before. I've done all these things like the core offerings. I've been in event management for years. I knew all these things, and yet the startup of it, the first year, was one of the most challenging years I've had in my career because even though I knew what to do, I had no idea what to do, and
yeah.
things go wrong. And yeah, you're right. Like you went up to the tee, and the drive went great, and then I ended up with a double bogey, right? Like that was the first year. I do enjoy golf myself. Don't ask me my handicap; it's awful. But you know, at every point, things would go really well. It was like, oh, like I know what I'm doing. This is great. And it was like, oh no, everything's going wrong. I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know anything. But being able to talk to people and access some of those resources that were meaningful for me for where I was at. That would it have been easier if I had an MBA? Probably not. Like I still would have come up against these challenges because so many of the things that just happen, but you can't let that prevent you from doing it either. Like you kind of have to barge through because otherwise, like, well, why did you start in the first place? Like, you just got to keep going.
One of the biggest things, and again, why we call this thing the veteran business community, is if I met you at a random place, like just met at the pub, and you're like, "Hey, I'm married to an army guy." Wow, let's sit down and talk about our experience. If I meet people from the Navy or Army, Air Force, just the fact that we bump into people, if we have that shared connection, then instantly we can sit down and have an amazing conversation. We really passionately believe that that translates across into business as well. That you've got a group of people here that, we're not perfect. We might not be the perfect business owners. We might not even have the most perfect products all the time. But in terms of people, we're passionate about supporting each other. And one of the things that I'm really pushing from a veteran narrative is the people behind the businesses, like particularly when it comes to corporate and government procurement, is character and courage and commitment and all of these things are what you want in a great business partner. So I'll never say that you should buy from a veteran-owned business because they deserve a pat in the head or throw them a bone or because they've all got PTSD or because of war crimes or they're all suicidal, anything like that. I want to always put a positive positioning statement around the people behind the business, and that's the reason you choose them now. One of the things I also believe, just on a side note, talking about veterans and family members who are doing it tough because of their military experiences or their life, then maybe self-employment at your own pace, at your own place is an option for you. We recognize that the military life is tough and it hurts a lot of people in many different ways. So if you're not able to work 9 to 5 and catch the train and clock on and clock off and enter the regular workforce, then maybe something at your own place could be right for you. But business is not for everybody. You really just have to make sure that if you take the plunge, you're as prepared as possible. And we just want to be here to support those on that journey.
Yeah, I think that's such a good sentiment that 9 to 5 isn't for everybody, and neither is business ownership. But I think it's such a great alternative for people who aren't going to thrive in an office environment. I'm one of those people. I've never done particularly well, and you're never on time, and you're kind of chaotic, and that's not thrilling for other people in the office all the time. They walk in and see the pile of doom on my desk. That I feel so much more comfortable in my own space, and my cat's here, and my snacks are here, and it's fine, and I can sit on the couch and type away, and that's brilliant for me. And I think that's sort of for myself, like gravitating towards running my own businesses, and prior to VESPIIA was you consulting and you freelancing and doing all that sort of work. That it is such a great alternative that it is terrifying, and it is significantly harder work in my opinion than just you're clocking in and out. I've done the government thing, I've done all of that, and it's like, yeah, that's super easy. You just roll in and you do the thing and you go home. But if that's not for you, that's not a bad thing. It's just not for you. So you're running a business, if you've got the idea and if you've got the gusto to kind of persevere, then yeah, it's such a fantastic alternative. The fact that there's such a wonderful community waiting for you with that shared experience and with that sort of camaraderie built in, it's worth giving a shot.
Yeah, I definitely think it's not easy street. You have to work, but the and you have. I think it's naive to think that you don't have to grind and really put in to get it going. But my biggest thing is grinding to create systems that run the business, not just grinding forever. Otherwise, it's a tough way to make a coin. But if you can understand how to always have that mentality of how to systemize what you're doing, automate what you can, and then potentially delegate as you grow to get team members. That's where we want to. It should be able to offer, the life that it presents, because it is a bit of a fairy tale. Like, oh, start a business and make a fortune. Well, that's not
Right off into the
necessarily,
sunset.
yeah, not necessarily how it works. Right?
Yeah,
Plan.
absolutely. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, you're right that a spreadsheet can only take you so far. And that I've been in organizations where they're still operating on that model, and you're like, oh my god, this is not it. Yeah, there's so much tech and there's so many tools out there that utilizing them from as early as possible can be a massive game changer. I was dead set that you were going to have a CRM and we're going to have these systems in place that do X, Y, Z, because I'm not going to sit there and do it myself. Like that's too much work. You work smart, and that whilst sometimes tech can be a bit confronting and terrifying, it's absolutely worth getting on top of and being involved in from the beginning, so that because trying to catch up, I think having seen organizations do that they haven't embraced tech, and they haven't embraced automation and things like that, that you 20 years down the line, they've been running for a long time, it's successful, it's great, but now they have to digitize. Like, that's such a massive effort. It takes 10 times more work than it would have if it was just embraced in the beginning. So you're setting that sort of future success for yourself is vital.
So, for example, on that front, this probably won't be out in time, but next Wednesday, at 1 o'clock, we are running like a CRM workshop for BBC members. If you're listening to this after the whatever it is, the 6th of August, then just let us know, because we'll have a copy of it. But these are the kind of things that we'll do: is run mini workshops and run, education and community programs, just so people can. And just the tricky thing is that the military experience is so vast and varied. Whether you're private or junior officer, junior soldier or junior officer that's only done a couple of years, through to being senior warrant officers and senior generals. There's pilots and logisticians and infantry. There's just so many varied experiences, let alone the great partners and spouses. It's not necessarily a one size fits all. So we want to have a place where people can come and really, like, sort of pick off the supermarket shelf of what they want, because there is no defined continuum or step 1, 2, 3 that fits everybody. Everybody's different.
Yeah, absolutely. I think embracing uniqueness is a good thing.
So
Great to mention the Wednesday sessions that you do. I'm planning to jump on those myself because there's some great content that comes through. As we sort of come to the end of the podcast, which is a bummer because I'm having a great chat. What is for people looking to engage with BBC, our veteran business community? How do we go about that?
Well, the first thing we do is every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Sydney time, and just change the clocks accordingly, daylight savings, whatever that is, or Perth or wherever. So 1 p.m. Sydney, we just do a 1 hour digital networking catch up on Zoom. It's a place to introduce yourself, get other people to learn about who you are and what you do and why you do it. But also, there's just either a guest speaker or a topic of the day. We're also running boot camps, and within our community, we've got such a massive pool of experts. If you need business coaching, if you need marketing, if you need sales support, if you need ISO certification or DISP registration or cybersecurity or websites, technology, you'll find that there's a veteran business owner that can do it. So for anyone who's interested, veteranbc.com, so veteranbravocharlie.com is the website. Just say good day. We've got 2 products. We've got a certification process that, because we're out there fighting for veteran procurement. For example, last week I briefed 100 of Qantas's buyers on why we should get veteran-owned businesses into their supply chain. Today I met with Compass Group, which is a big base services and food and facilities managed provider, and they're looking for veteran-owned businesses. So we've got a process where we certify you as a veteran-owned business, or if you're a partner and spouse, we call it a veteran community business. And that's just a humble $10 a month. We also have like a membership program, but ultimately everybody is welcome to try before you buy. We just want to be able to connect and support everybody's journey into this. this fun part of life.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And the fact that it's so accessible and easy to jump in is wonderful. So wherever you are in your business ownership journey, you're jumping into being a part of VBC is such a easy thing to do. And yeah, it's fantastic to hear the work that VBC is doing in the procurement space as well. Like you're creating further opportunities for veteran businesses to become suppliers, especially for some of these larger corporations. Being an SME or small to medium enterprise um, can be really tough to get in with some of these big guys that and dealing with defense primes and things like that. Being a small business can be really tricky. So having someone like VBC advocating on behalf of veteran businesses is fantastic.
Yeah,
So you from the VESPIIA perspective, we're thrilled to be working with you guys, and you're in a bit of a partnership there that we're in full support and backing those procurement efforts and providing as much support as we can there, because yeah, it is such an essential part and could provide some really incredible opportunities for small businesses within our community.
but I'll just bring it back to we're passionate about the people. We're passionate about the people who have served the country and who are loyal and have character and commitment. And we just think that they're business owners worth investing in. And we believe that government and corporate Australia, so corporate Australia is doing great and really embracing us. To be honest, government is not so yet, but we're working on that. We're waving the flag and we're looking to reach out now to tell them that these are great people running great businesses, and ultimately that's what you need in your supply chain and as your business partners.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Pete. It's been a great chat. I think we could carry on for a couple of hours talking about all this sort of stuff. But great to hear about the work that BBC is doing, and I guess, a bit of hope for veteran-owned business and service-owned businesses that are forming. And I hope that for anyone who is listening that's kind of on the fence about maybe should I, this is sort of a bit of a push to be like, just give it a go. That yeah, it's terrifying, but it can be super rewarding, and there's a whole community waiting to support you and see you through that. It's a very exciting time, I think, to be a service-owned business.
Thank you. And, just a quick shout out to all the work that you're doing, not just with our, military veteran community, but, for any of the first responders out there. They deserve to be recognized just as much as we did. So thanks for what you're doing.
I appreciate that, Pete. Thank you. It's yeah, look, VESPI has been a hell of a journey over the last 3 years, and I think that was something else that you heard from the Ballantines, that it takes about 3 years to really feel the wheels turning. And I think we're at that point now that you're having the podcast. We've got the conference coming up in October, that you were able to start you working on partnerships like this with the veteran business community. It is a very exciting time, and I'm really thrilled to see the conversations that we're starting to have and that we're going to be able to have in the coming months for first responders, to try and elevate them, I guess, back up to where we are with defence as well. Some of these things we've been sort of talking about, that we've got a lot of catching up to do, knowing that the opportunities, especially in a space like this, already exist, and that we need more first responder owned businesses. We want to highlight that. We want to be a part of that journey and to see them be successful moving forward. So, and same for spouses. I think so many incredible partners throughout the country that why not start a business? Give it a go.
Give it a go. Now,
Give
thank
it a
you for
go.
having me. I really appreciate your
Yeah.
time sharing the message.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. We'll have all the details in the description below, either on Spotify or YouTube, wherever you're watching, listening, and you're welcome to reach out to either Pete or myself to have a chat about any support that you're looking for, either from VESPIIA or the veterans and business community. Thank you again, Pete. Absolutely wonderful. Till next time.
Have a great day.